working with so many restaurant owners and leaders, I've really been able to see things in a certain type of light because I get to work with so many of them and understand them at a different level. But I do start seeing some consistencies, and I start seeing some what Tony Robbins would call patterns. And patterns are predictability, right? You see a pattern and you try and predict what's going to happen next, and you use patterns to try and identify them. One thing I see when I work with restaurant owners and leaders a lot is that you can divide them up into almost two different categories instantly. And it's one or the other, right? Each leader or owner is on one side of the category or the other. A lot of times they don't even realize that they're in the category that they're in. And that's something I have to break down, right? In order to work with an owner and leaders at a high level and really get them to get results, there usually has to be some sort of mindset shift that has to take place. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's not at all, but most of the time it's there. Sometimes it's really drastic. And so a lot of times it's really drastic when they're on the wrong side of this equation. And so two different types of leaders, two different types of owners, bottom line, period. I can't, and how can I? So I can't come to a leader or I come to an owner and we start talking about things that we want to do. And right away, I start getting the I can'ts. I can't do it because I don't have the resources. I can't do it because I don't have the team. I can't do it because it's busy. I can't do it. We're not that type of restaurant. I can't do it because we don't have the managers to do that. I can't do it because I don't understand how to do it, right? Just all these reasons, right? We're waiting for a GM to come on. We're waiting for a GM to leave. We're waiting for the slow season to start. Always constantly something that I can't do, right? I throw something at them. And if it doesn't fall right into their lap and it's churn, plug and play, they can't do it. And that's a problem because what that is lack of innovation. That's it, bottom line, period. And I'm being really direct here because this conversation right now, this video, I want this to have a dramatic impact. I want this to bring you success. I want you to leave and have tools that are going to make your business better. I would love for you to say, after this video, I was able to improve my business in some way, shape, or form. But there has to be a directness, with that. And a lot of times there's just a lot of things that we're not seeing or we're refusing to see or accept. And one of them is that growth has been stumped in some way, shape, or form, not financially, but maybe growth in operations, growth in leadership, growth in our people, right? We're not able to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish because of this lack of growth or lack of mindset. And it's lack of innovation. We fail to stop innovating. We just think it's black and white. We can't do something or we can. And it really isn't that. Now, that's where we go to the next category, which is how can I? Leaders that I work with, when I say this is something that we need to do, that you have to do, that's really important that you do, that'd be super beneficial for your business, they see it and go, okay, well, I don't have the management support for that, but how can I make it work? I don't really have the staff right now for that, but how can I make it work? We're extremely busy right now to the point where we're just trying to survive, but how can I make it work? Because if there's a will, there's a way. I'll give you an example. I was working with a group of restaurant, and one thing that the servers did was they had this invisible rule that if we close at 10 o'clock, people should stop coming in at 9:45, right, or really even 9:30, because we close at 10. How rude is it to come in 1 minute before our business closes? I try to explain to them that the whole reason for hours of operations is to explain to someone when you walk into our doors, we're telling you that if you come in before this time, we're open. If you come in after this time, we're closed. If you run a really good operation, then you're going to tell your staff and train your staff that we close at 10. So expect to get sat at 10. We're going to give them a full experience. So the guests might be here till 11 or 11:30, but we are here to serve, and we're not going to give someone an attitude because we have invisible rules. We're not going to rush someone because we have invisible rules. We honor the guest always, and so we have to have that mentality. If someone walks in at 10:05, if we can make it happen, should we? Or should we turn them away because we have invisible rules? We have needs that need to be filled, right? I need to be off. I want to go home. Or is it about the guest? If someone walks in at 10:05, we have an opportunity to win them over, making the guest for life by treating them the right way. We're going to do that. Or we have the opportunity to make sure they never come back to this business again because they got treated so poorly. We also have that opportunity too. And most people take that one. So when I work with the staff, they came in and they were upset that we closed at a certain time and people would walk in, and I would try and tell them, they get so upset, right? And they would say that this was unacceptable, and they would have a certain type of attitude about it. And I'd always try and stop them and say, it's all about the guest experience, right? Again, that's a group of I can't and how can I? Well, we can't serve them because a fryer just got shut off. We can't serve them because we closed at 10:05 and the bartender just put threw away the garnishes, right? Whatever it is, right? We stop and say, no. When a guest walks in, it's always how can I? We want them to adapt that mindset, correct, right? We want them to say, How can I accommodate the guest? How can I make the guest happy? How can I make sure the guest has a memorable experience? How can I make sure that the guest comes back? But we have to have the same mentality as owners, as operators, right? How can I? We want to adopt that philosophy. We want to make sure they adopt it. And there's a will, there's a way. Now, what I would tell those servers who had such a bad attitude about serving someone at 10:05 or at 9:58 when they close at 10, if I were to say, I will give you $1,000 if you serve them and you serve them with a smile on your face. Will you do it? And of course they say, yeah, of course, right? They even get a little excited. Is he serious, right? Oh yeah, of course. So if someone was to give you $1,000, you would do it happily, no problem, smile on your face. But if you were to do it as your job, which it is your job to do it, you begrudgingly do it. And that really shows you like the power and the detriment of the mindset of how can I and I can't. Because even if you're saying you're going to give someone $1,000 and they'll do it, that still falls in I can't. It's even worse because their motivations are completely wrong. Their mindset is completely wrong. There's no way someone's going to give really good hospitality, be contributing to a really good culture in your business if that's their mentality, right? Their mentality should always be, I would appreciate the $1,000, but I would do it anyway, right? I'm here to give the guests the best experience possible because that's our culture. Because that's what my manager does, because that's what my other staff members do. That's what we've been trained to do. Our systems are developed for us to execute that, right? All these little things that get them bought in. And that's the difference, really. It's buy-in or no buy-in. That's it. Buy-in or no buy-in. Are you bought in or you're not? Are you bought into change? Are you bought into commitment to change? Even with as an ownership, you would think that they would be, but you'd be shocked, right? So many owners are so quick to say why they can't do things and why it's not possible instead of saying they can. And that's why innovation is so important, because innovation is the creative way of thinking, how can I make these things work? And a business that adopts that is a business that's going to be successful. You look at all the billion-dollar brands out there that are restaurants that are doing billions of dollars that are really crushing it. They have the absolute I can mentality. Now you see the businesses that don't, that always say, I hear this all the time, the restaurant industry is so difficult, the margins are so thin. It's because we make it difficult. It's because we cause our margins to be thin, right? Revenue solves all problems. Margins aren't thin for Chick-fil-A, I'll tell you that much right now, because they have the revenue. We choose not to have the revenue because we're saying that we're not willing to do the things to be highly successful. Because any business that has really thin margins, that's struggling, right? Even if they have 3 or 5 locations, but our margins are so thin, we're struggling. When we do the assessment for those businesses, we see all the same things: underdeveloped training, lack of training, no trained trainers, underdeveloped management, lack of leadership development, no leadership development protocols, non-existent systems, right? Inconsistency, high turnover, all of these things. We ask, well, it's just the way it is. It's just a business. It's not. There's businesses that do it all the time. There's restaurants that do it all the time. But we're missing all these things in our businesses and wondering why it's so difficult. It's so difficult because we're not operating our business correctly. We're underdeveloping all these aspects of our business and wondering why we're having such a hard time. We're creating the hard times. We're creating them. And that's why I always encourage restaurant owners to stop telling me that you can't. Why can't you? Can. How can you? Right? There's a will, there's a way. If someone were to give you $1 million in injection, say we will inject $1 million into your business if you can figure out a way to do something that you said isn't possible, especially during this busy season because it's so crazy. I can guarantee you're going to figure out a way to do it. If there's a will, there's a way. And so that's why adopt that mindset will change everything. And everything that comes your way, say, how can I, not I can. Do that for 6 months. Do that for 90 days and see the impact it has on your business. Start talking to your leadership team and your staff about that. And again, leading by example. If you're an owner, you have to adopt this mindset. You can't just ask your leadership team to do it, but then constantly tell them why they can't, even if it's for budgetary reasons, right? Not I can't. How can I? How can I make this work? For example, if they're saying we need another day of training for, 2 days more of training for each staff member, in order for us to give the hospitality level that you're asking for, in order for us to get the reviews you're asking for, the upsells you're asking for, the retention you're asking for, can you do it? And you might instantly say, I can't, we don't have the budget. I can't, we can't budget it out. Well, instead of thinking about that way, how can I? Maybe that extra 2 days of training is an ROI, it's an investment. You're going to get that money back. So you don't have to worry about budgeting it. You don't have to worry about putting it in the bottom line. It's not just money lost into the ether. It's something that's going to come back. And maybe 6 months down the road, all of a sudden you see an increase in sales by 5%. So over a year, an increase in sales of 5% versus adding in 2 days of training and throwing that away. What is there a payoff, right? Is there an ROI there? The answer is yes. We're training our staff better. Our retention's higher. Our retention will be higher next year after that. So it's a snowball effect. Our employee retention will be higher. Our upsells are higher. Our reviews get better. Then reviews get better. More people come in. Business increases, and on and on and on and on. Or we just stop it right here and say, budget, I can't. Budget, I can't. John Taffert said this and it really stuck with me. You're stepping over dollars to pick up nickels. It's like, why are we trying so hard to save money in parts of our business when there's parts of our business where we could be making more money? Why is our business model not increasing revenue versus decreasing spend? There should be a point in your business where you scale to a certain amount where decreasing costs is going to be absolutely crucial. Maximizing that efficiency is going to be absolutely crucial. But if you're scaling, if you're under 10, 12, 15 locations, why are we focused on that? Why are we not focused on increasing revenue? Because that becomes a slippery slope. If we're trying to make weight by cutting, that's a very slippery slope. And before you know it, it's all about cutting constantly, consistently. It's never about growing the business. And before you know it, you're in a really, really bad vortex, right? That's pulling you down. Versus always thinking, how do we just increase revenue? We need more money for training. How do we increase revenue, right? We need another manager. How do we increase revenue? We need to refurbish the bathrooms. How do we increase revenue? These things aren't cost. Most of the things you're doing for your business are going to have an ROI if they're done correctly. So if they have an ROI to them, how do we get the money to get that done, to get the ROI, to increase all those things? Because again, it's a snowball effect. So I want you to sit down with your management team and have a meeting and say, how can we create a culture of how can I versus I can't?